Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are unpacking something absolutely crucial. We're going to dive deep into the hidden psychology behind modern identity, status, and honestly, the unbelievable, sometimes extreme lengths people will go to just to feel like they matter in this world. It's like a giant puzzle, and today we're putting the pieces together using a fascinating framework that explains so much of the chaotic behavior we see out there in society. So, get focused, get comfortable, and let's get into it.
It really is the ultimate question, isn't it? Why are we all so obsessed with how we measure up to everyone else? Well, to really understand the psychology of modern identity, we have to look at the water we're all swimming in. Society has essentially built this massive, overwhelming scoreboard, and we are forced to stare at it every single day of our lives. Okay, let's dive into this, because the pressure to constantly put points up on this board is just immense. Just think about the metrics on this modern scoreboard. It's everywhere. Money, the luxury cars, the fancy job titles, a totally shredded gym physique, having a younger partner on your arm, being the boss, perfectly fulfilling those traditional gender roles, the number of followers you literally carry around in your pocket all day. It is a relentless bombardment, boom, boom, boom. Everywhere a man looks, he is handed another metric to measure his worth against. And the sheer volume of these markers, it creates a completely suffocating pressure to constantly prove that you actually matter.
And this brilliantly illustrates what psychologists call the compensatory power framework. Let's just slow down for a second and really absorb this, because it's a real game changer. If a man feels ineffective or completely invisible in the wider world, he doesn't just accept it. No way. He compensates. He seeks out hyper-specific areas where he can reliably manufacture authority, belonging, admiration, or control. So all those surface behaviors that look aggressive or chaotic, underneath it all, it's really just a desperate attempt to repair a deeply injured sense of self.
Let's look at how this plays out in real life with what we call the house substitution. Picture a guy who basically has zero real power out in the world. His boss controls his entire day, the economy totally dictates his wallet. So what happens? He comes home, and suddenly the house becomes his kingdom. He might become obsessively controlling over the family budget, dictating everyone's schedule, or, throwing an absolute fit over the thermostat. He tells himself, I am the man of the house. He's substituting true competence out in the world for this strict, localized authority simply because his family has to listen to him. Now, this framework also applies to institutions like religion or community groups. And let's be super clear here. The research isn't taking a shot at religion. It's maintaining strict neutrality. The distinction here is entirely about human motivation. A secure man might go to his church out of genuine faith and community. He truly believes. But an insecure man? He might seek out religious leadership to compensate. Unconsciously, he's thinking, okay, I might not be winning in the economy, but here, I have moral superiority. At least here, I am somebody. It's the difference between a genuine, deep belief and using an institution as a crutch to prop up a fragile identity.
Following this framework takes us to a much darker form of compensation, unfortunately. You see, when genuine respect feels like it's just too difficult or impossible to obtain, some guys realize that fear is much, much easier to manufacture. If a man can't get people to genuinely admire him, he might resort to anger, intimidation, aggression, or humiliating other people. He becomes intensely controlling simply because he is desperate to feel any kind of impact on the world around him.
And the absolute tragedy of that behavior is captured perfectly in this one thought. If they fear me, they can't look down on me. I'll say that again. If they fear me, they can't look down on me. Just let that sink in. This isn't genuine power. True power doesn't need to shout, right? This is purely defensive. It's a shield made of aggression, built entirely to protect a deeply insecure core from the agony of being overlooked.
In our society, wealth often becomes that ultimate shield. But the money itself, it's just a vehicle. The really crucial point is the psychology driving it. Healthy provision sounds a bit like this. I can provide, which is an expression of my care and my responsibility. But unhealthy compensation has a totally different inner voice. It says, without this money, I am a nobody. The wealth becomes the sole scoreboard for his worth. And if the money vanishes, his entire identity basically collapses under the weight.
A lot of this actually stems from what researchers call the masculinity gap. Society hands men this incredibly rigid script. You gotta build wealth, buy the big house, be the ultimate provider, the whole shebang. But look at the modern reality actually blocking that path. We're talking stagnant wages, impossible housing markets. Men are handed a script that modern economics makes incredibly difficult to actually pull off. And this creates a very painful gap between the man society demands he be and the man he actually is. And that gap, it is an absolute breeding ground for deep insecurity.
So, if the traditional economic path to feeling valuable is completely blocked off, where else does a man turn for that validation? Well, he turns to the equation of desire. Walk through this equation with me step by step. Step 1. I don't feel powerful professionally or financially. Step 2. I am desired and pursued by women. Step 3. Therefore, if women want me, I must still have value. Sexual desirability provides a much faster, much more immediate source of validation than spending 20 grueling years trying to climb up some corporate ladder.
And that dynamic leads us directly into the phenomenon of older men seeking much younger women. Now, again, let's keep it neutral. An older man might date a younger woman for completely ordinary reasons. We're talking shared interests, beer compatibility, personality. Having a younger partner doesn't automatically mean a guy is insecure. However, youth can sometimes be weaponized as psychological symbolism. For a man who's feeling aged or invisible, a younger partner acts as a massive hit of intense validation. It's a chance to reinvent himself, and it's undeniable proof to the rest of the world that he, for sure, still has it.
This becomes even more complex when we look at the dynamic of repartnering. Like, why might a man leave an established, long-term marriage? Well, sometimes the older relationship inadvertently becomes the mirror. It heavily reflects back his history, his financial struggles, his past mistakes, and his own aging. A new, younger partner, on the other hand, that represents the reset button. It's this energizing burst of novelty, of fantasy, and that feeling of youth. So the man leaving isn't necessarily just rejecting his wife. Psychologically, he might literally be trying to escape the older, struggling, flawed version of himself.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the giveaway to this whole dynamic. It's captured perfectly in this exact phrase. With this new woman, I feel like a different man. That reveals pretty much everything. It proves the new relationship is functioning as a temporary psychological reset button. He hasn't done the agonizing internal work to actually change who he is. He just swapped out the external reflection so he can temporarily feel powerful and reinvented.
Think about it. For a man who feels professionally invisible or socially irrelevant, having an attractive younger partner answers these deeply painful, invisible questions that are constantly running in the background of his mind. Am I still attractive? Am I still masculine? Do I still have value? Can I still compete? Have I still got power? The mere fact that she wants him acts as this enormous psychological reward, instantly numbing those deep-rooted anxieties.
But there is a fatal flaw in this entire strategy, and it's the danger of novelty. At first, sure, the new relationship provides a massive hit of dopamine and fantasy. It feels great. But, time always wins. The novelty inevitably declines, the fantasy fades, and the new partner just becomes familiar reality. And when that happens, the old insecurities inevitably creep right back in. Because the external stimulus changed, sure, but the underlying internal deficit, it never did.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because when those quick fixes inevitably fail, it triggers what the framework calls the compensation ladder, and it is a tragic, exhausting descent. It starts with a quiet feeling, I don't feel powerful, which then triggers, I need to feel significant. So, I seek status and respect. And when that still doesn't fix the hole inside, I frantically seek admiration and validation.
And the frantic search just continues downward. I seek desirability and control. I seek a ready-made belonging and identity, maybe through something like extreme tribal politics. I seek novelty and dopamine. Until finally, at the very bottom of the ladder, just for a fleeting moment, I temporarily feel better. But the underlying insecurity remains. No amount of money, no fancy job title, no strict authority at home, and no younger partner can ever fix an internal deficit. After all that climbing, the exhausting hustle, and the desperate attempts to control the world around him, the core problem is completely untouched. So the crucial point is this subtle but massive distinction. A man can be a perfectly good man by society's standards, hardworking, loyal, providing for his family, while secretly feeling, I am not enough, and relying entirely on those external scoreboards just to survive. A truly secure man, however, doesn't need to be constantly impressive. He can actually tolerate being ordinary. He can tolerate aging or losing or not being the loudest guy in the room without his entire identity collapsing in on itself.
Which leaves us with this really profound final thought to wrap up today's explainer.
Where does a man actually get his feeling of worth when he doesn't get enough of it from true competence, purpose, and autonomy? The next time you look at the behaviors of the people around you, or hey, even look in the mirror, ask yourself that question. Are you acting from a place of genuine, solid purpose, or are you just desperately trying to compensate? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. It's been a great one. Keep questioning the scoreboards around you, and I'll see you next time.